Here in Studio One, I have a female vocal which is completely dry, and that's not what I want at all. Before I fix that, let's just have a quick listen.
Was it the touch of my hand? Was it the way that I stand too close?
So what I actually want is for it to be swimming in reverb, a little bit like that guitar in the background, but even more so. So I'm going to press F5 on my keyboard to open my browser. I've already got the effects tab selected at the top here, and I'm in the Presonus folder, and I'm going to drag over the room reverb, which comes with Studio One. I'm going to make sure that I drop it on the sends area of that female vocal. Okay, so I drop it there, and you can see that the send has been created, and also a new effects bus has been created there with the room reverb plugin inserted. It's done all of that automatically. Now, just in case you're confused and your effects channel has appeared all the way over to the right, there's a setting to change that if you want to. Just go over to the left hand side, click on the spanner icon, and just make sure that keep effects channels to the right is unchecked if you want that behavior. So the reverb has opened up here. You can see it in the middle. I want to select a room type of reverb there. Let's have a quick listen to see how it's sounding so far.
Was it the touch of my hand? Was it the way that I stand too close?
Well, it's certainly a huge reverb, and it's kind of what I had in mind, but what I'm finding is that it's actually masking the main vocal while she's singing. It's kind of too much while she's singing, but not so much in between. Hi folks, I'm Mike, and I hope you're well. We're going to be moving that reverb out of the way of the vocal while she's singing using a technique called ducking. But before we dive into that, let's just do another quick cleanup. So it's almost always the case with reverbs that they add muddiness to the mix with a low end build up. So before we move on to the main point of this video, let's just clean that up quickly. So I'm over in my browser again. I'm going to grab the Pro EQ plugin, which comes with Studio One. I'm going to drag it off to my effects channel and just drop it just before the room reverb. Okay, you can just see that little blue line appearing. I'll drop it there, and now we can see we've got the EQ just before the reverb. And remember, that means that the main vocal is not going to be affected by the EQ, only the reverb of the main vocal. Okay, and what I'm simply going to do is turn on the low cut filter in the Pro EQ here, and you can see that that low cut filter has appeared. Now I'm just going to quickly solo that effects channel, okay, just to give me a bit of a clearer idea of what I'm cutting. We'll have a quick listen.
Was it the touch of my hand?
There's a fair amount of low end in there. I'm just going to drag it all the way up here, yeah, to around about, what have we got there, around about 300 hertz. Have a listen.
Was it the touch of my hand?
That's fine. That's kind of roughly where I would have it. Okay, unsolo that and have a listen.
Was it the touch of my hand? Was it the way that I stand too close?
Okay, so we've moved the kind of low end of the reverb out the way, but what we actually want to do is almost move the whole reverb out of the way while she's singing. So I'm going to head over to the browser again in Studio One and grab the compressor which comes with Studio One and drag it across to that effects channel we created earlier to the last position. Okay, I drop it there just after the room reverb. I'm putting it there so that it's going to affect the reverb, but it's not going to affect the main vocal. And when I say affect, we actually want to use the compressor to turn it down at certain points. Okay, let's start off in terms of settings with the threshold. I'm going to drag it down really low. Okay, what that means is the compressor is going to be triggered by anything above a whisper from the vocalist. Okay, we don't want it to be triggered by breaths and things, but certainly while she's singing. Okay, so we'll get it down pretty low there. I'm also going to grab the ratio control and set a pretty high ratio. I'm just going to make sure that we are turning it down by a significant amount. Okay, there's no exact setting here, but you know, something which you're going to notice. I've got around about an 8:1 ratio set there. Now I want to make sure that this compressor is actually being triggered by the main vocal. So I'll go to the top. You can see where it says sidechain here. I'll click on that little icon next to that word and then select a source. Okay, and the source that I want to select is the main vocal. That's the source to trigger this compressor. I'm going to check the send box next to that. Okay, and you'll see over on the main vocal channel that that send has been created and it's sending the signal there through to this compressor. Okay, so I'll press escape to get rid of that, and let's just have a quick listen and see what we've got so far. Before I do that, I'll quickly select solo for the main vocal, and the effects channel will also be soloed.
Was it the touch of my hand? Was it the way that I stand too close?
Well, it's definitely working, but can you hear how it keeps sort of coming in and out a little bit too frequently? It sounds a little bit unnatural. It's actually allowing the volume to increase again between words. We don't want that. We want it to be between phrases. So the reason it's doing that is because the release time is a little bit too short here. Okay, it's on 120 milliseconds at the moment. So I'm just going to push it up to something much more generous. Let's go for around about 400 to 500 here and have a listen again.
Was it the touch of my hand? Was it the way that I stand?
Now I'm listening to the sort of increase in volume. I felt it was just a tiny bit too slow. Okay, so I'll just pull back again, maybe less than 450. Have another listen.
Was it the touch of my hand? Was it the way that I stand?
Not too bad. I could tweak that a little bit more, but you get the idea. Now that reverb, once it kicks in, is so long that the tail of it is still present when the next phrase comes in. So there's my next decision. How quickly do I want to clamp down on that once the vocal actually sort of starts singing again? Okay, and I think fairly quickly. Okay, so I'm just going to get the attack time down, not to its quickest setting, but you know, around about, let's go for 1.5 milliseconds here. Now we're not listening to the main vocal when we first hear this, but as we go into the second phrase.
Was it the touch of my hand? Was it the way that I stand too close?
And we're getting somewhere close to what I want here. Of course, one very important thing is to not solo it and listen to it in the context of the mix.
Was it the touch of my hand? Was it the way that I stand too close?
You get the idea there. Yeah, it's sort of probably not exactly what I wanted yet, but you understand all the controls to tweak it to the way that you do want it. While we're talking about that, if you just wanted it to simply cut the reverb out completely while she's singing, then you would just push that ratio you know, as high as it would go. 20:1 ratio is kind of crazy there. Probably make sure that the knee here is really sharp and get that threshold down as low as you can. It won't quite act like a switch, but close to it.
Was it the touch of my hand? Was it the way that I stand?
So you can get that kind of effect if that's what you want. That's where the art of this really comes in. There's no correct settings, there's no correct sound. You've got to think about what you want from an artistic point of view. So today we only use the room reverb, but there's actually 3 different reverbs available in Studio One, and you can find out about all of them right here.